All right, my name is Akiba Leisman. I'm the CEO of Mako Mining. So we are in the process of building what we think is going to be the highest grade open pit mine in the world. In fact, we started mining on our project 8 days ago. The plant that we are building is just over 50% complete. We're going to start cold commissioning it sometime early this summer, first gold pour late summer. But that's not the only thing that we're working on in Nicaragua right now. So our first objective is to build what will be a 500 ton per day operation, and we're well on the path of completing it. But we're also focused on a rather aggressive exploration program directly to the south of this mine, with the intent of proving out a resource such that we can define integrated economics at 1,000 tons a day by next year, and then to begin mining it at 1,000 tons a day in 2022. And I'll go over later in this presentation some of the hits that we've had on that new discovery. And then thirdly, what we think we actually have on this property is unlike other types of geology in Central America. We are sitting on what we think is an orogenic gold mining belt. And for peculiarities of history, it's never been explored before on a regional and a holistic basis. Now, who exactly are we? I've assembled over the course of the last 10 years what I think is the best operating team to build small and medium scale mines in the Americas. Jesse Munoz, who's our COO, used to run a small engineering, procurement, and construction management firm. He and his key employees have been onboarded as employees of Mako, and they are handling our day-to-day operations in Nicaragua. Secondarily, I used to work for the controlling shareholder, our 56% shareholder, Wexford Capital. I used to be the portfolio manager on the gold side of the business for what is a multi-billion-dollar private equity and hedge fund group. And Wexford has been there to provide key capital support to make sure that all of our objectives over at Mako happen on time and on budget. In July of last year, we closed a $27 million Canadian rights offering, which was there to be the majority of the capital to build our initial 500 ton per day operation. I've been very vocal about the remaining capital requirements of the project. And last week, we announced a very attractive loan from Wexford Capital in the amount of US $15 million, no equity, no warrants, at an 8% coupon for the first year, although after 12 months, it gets progressively more expensive. A little bit about the capital structure. We have 583 million shares outstanding. There's a few $1,000,000 of cash on the balance sheet. We took our first $5 million US draw from Wexford last week, and there's a remaining $10 million US amount of liquidity from that facility that, with a little bit of breath holding and belt tightening, should be sufficient to complete that 500 ton per day project. Management and directors currently own just under 10% of the company in the form of outright stock that we purchased on the open market, as well as an options package that was granted when I took over as full-time CEO in August of last year, where the average strike price of those options were granted at over 100% of where the market was trading at that point in time. We come from an investment background. Our objective is to make sure that this investment works, and that comes from how we manage the operation, and it also matters how we manage the capital structure as well. Now, this particular slide is illustrative of what we're doing, and I just want to hit home. We are building what will be an open pit mine. All of these holes that you see on this page, whether it's part of our infill program that we have over at San Albino or from our new discovery over at Las Conchitas, are all within open pit depths. And take a look at some of the holes that we've put out over here with respect to our infill program. So November 25th, 2019, where we hit 1.5 ounces gold, over 2 meters true width, 13 meters from surface. 2 mining benches away from surface. We're well into the first bench of mining just in the first 8 days of operations that we started in the middle of last week. We hit 2-ounce material over 2 meters true width. That particular hole was situated 5 meters from surface, 1 mining bench. These are flat-lying ore bodies that are amenable to open pit mining with basic highway-rated haul trucks and an excavator. We are taking this type of material out from the ground as we speak. This is not a high-grade underground mine that requires thousands of meters of development in order to access. These are areas of the mining project that are being mined now. Additionally, we have an exploration asset where currently there exists 0 resource. When I took over initially as interim CEO of Mako back in March of last year, there was follow-up drilling that was begging to be drilled from when the predecessor company got this project in 2009. I was going over some of the database when I first took over, and in an area about 4 kilometers south of our initial maiden resource over at San Albino, there existed a 3-meter intercept of 2-ounce material on an area that we called Las Conchitas. That was drilled in 2011. The next time that hole was followed up on was about 12 hours after I took over as interim CEO, because it was the first time that this company actually had access to capital to make the right kinds of investments in order to prove out what we think is going to be an orogenic gold mining camp. And what did that first hole that was followed up on 2011 hit? Oh, it was just a small 13-ounce intercept that you can see on that May 6th intercept that we had, situated 30 meters from surface. This is an area that we can begin mining within years once we get a permit to operate this area 4 kilometers south of where we're mining right now. So what is San Albino? We're in the wonderful country of Nicaragua. Many of you are aware of some of our compatriots in the country. So Calibre took over the B2 assets last year. They operate the El Limón and La Libertad mines. Probably each one of them is a solid 3-hour drive from where we are. We're 5 hours by actually surprisingly good roads from Managua to get to our site in Nueva Segovia. And a Colombian group called Mineros operates the Bonanza operation to the east of us, as well as an artisanal mining reprocessing camp called Hemco. Nicaragua is a mining-friendly jurisdiction. Our ability to get minor permit amendments from the government is fantastic. It is a safe jurisdiction. We're in the process of reclaiming a mine in Mexico. Mexico is not a safe mining jurisdiction. I do not feel comfortable going to Mexico from a personal security perspective any longer. In Nicaragua, I was there last week. I was having fun at a local bar, which is hopping right now since we turned on the mine. I can be out there at 2 o'clock in the morning, partying with the locals, not worried about my personal security at all. We have our operating office inside the town of El Jicaro. Our exploration office is 3 blocks away. You can walk from one office to the other without worrying about anything. Good luck with that happening in Sinaloa, where we are in the process of reclaiming our mine there. In terms of tax rate, there's a 3% royalty, top line non-deductible to mining companies there, and a 30% tax rate. And it's fairly easy to distribute cash from Nicaragua to our corporate jurisdictions. So a little bit about the history of this project, where it exists today, and what were some of the changes from when we initially put out preliminary economics in 2015. And a few things to highlight on this. So the last time that there was public data associated with this mine was in 2015 when this PEA was put together. And a few items to note. That upfront capital of US $21.1 million. We actually had quite a bit of input on developing the engineering on this particular PEA. There was a fairly material scope change to the project, which included putting in filtered tailings and a dry stack tailings storage facility, so top of the line in terms of environmental safety and security. That scope change took the apples to apples upfront CapEx to about $25.5 million US. On top of that, that resource estimate that was put out at 7 grams on that indicated category, which was principally in the open pit, we did not have much to say about how that resource was put together. When I took over initially as interim CEO last year, we redid the underlying geological model. We incorporated drilling that was done after 2015. So 2016, there was a metallurgical and infill program that was done. And then 2018, a further infill program that was done. We put together that, did a updated resource model. I'm not going to give you the specific numbers today because it's not ready for public dissemination, but I can say the grade of the deposit is substantially higher than the 7 grams that are there. We are going to start putting out monthly updates in terms of what we're pulling out of the ground, so an investor can make a rational decision in terms of what the true grade of this mine will be. This is an open pit mine. We intend to operate this at substantially higher than 7 grams a ton, materially higher than 7 grams a ton, with a single digit, at least initially, strip ratio in terms of where our current operating plan is. And you can take a look at some, I don't want to compare our mine to some of these world-scale operations that are in the hundreds, if not millions of ounces of year production, but you can see that grades of this type in an open pit mining scenario causes your costs to be deep in the first quartile of the curve. We expect our mine, which again was turned on 8 days ago, to be well within, deep within the first quartile of production costs within the industry. And what do we have from an exploration perspective? That little square over there where it says San Albino deposit, that's the area that we're mining right now. To the south, we made our discovery, that 13-ounce intercept that we showed earlier. That is called Las Conchitas. We're in the process of drilling that right now. Starting the second week of March, I'll be putting out follow-up drill holes over at Las Conchitas. But I can say that resource is, or I should say that that geology is looking predictive, and I'm encouraged by at least how those holes are looking, and I'm hopeful that you will be encouraged with how those assay results will look when they're ready for public dissemination. On top of that, in December, we acquired a concession directly to the north on strike to San Albino called Puerto Rios. Once we get to that, it is clear to us that the San Albino vein going along strike to the northeast continues on the other side of the river to that concession that we acquired. And lastly, we think we are sitting on an orogenic gold mining camp over here, very unlike the geology elsewhere in Central America. This 23 kilometers of strike, the strike direction is the direction of that text. That 23 kilometers is mineralized. We've done some pretty extensive prospecting on our what's now 150 square kilometer ground. We have workings all over. We have anomalies at surface. We have geochem samples, rock chips, exploration pits, artisanal mining, all along the full 23 kilometers of our strike. And on top of that, to the southwest and to the northeast, we are convinced that the mineralization continues even beyond the concessions that we currently own. This could be a material world-scale orogenic gold mining camp when all is said and done. And when the mine turns on and generates cash flow, then we can start exploring this on a regional basis as opposed to just investing in our 500-ton per day project and the exploration work that's needed to expand that to 1,000 tons a day by 2022. A little bit about how the crow flies in terms of our project and plant layout. We are mining on the north of the screen, and again, we acquired the concession directly to the north of San Albino back in December. That inner blob, that is the extent of our open pit. We are in the process right now of completing what's now a 19,000 meter infill program over at San Albino. We've now drilled this out on average to 20 meter spacings. We are confident with how that resource is holding together. We will get more confident as we have our 5 meter spacing blast holes back, initially from an external lab in a couple of weeks, and then from our internal on-site lab, which will be commissioned over the course of the next month. On top of that, we made a discovery over at Las Conchitas about 4 kilometers to the south. It is clear that you have very similar type mineralization, very similar, if not higher grades than we have over at San Albino, and the intent is to drill that, have a maiden resource out by next year, demonstrate if we're successful, integrated economics to expand this to 1,000 tons a day with an internal goal of us getting to mining this at 1,000 tons a day by the year 2022. Now, what makes this project unique? Yes, this is different than other projects in Central America. This is an orogenic system hosted in a metamorphic rock, a schist, unlike some of the other geologies that you see with our country competitors. But these types of narrow vein systems happen quite frequently around the world. In fact, I can give you 10 or 11 different analogs elsewhere that frankly have better grades than what we do. These narrow vein, quartz-hosted, high-grade mineralizations that you see in northern Canada, that you see in West Australia, very similar geology to what we have. What makes this project unique, though, is that about 80 million years ago, topographically something changed. The ore body basically tilted on its side by 60 to 65 degrees. So our average dip over here is somewhere around 25 to 27 degrees. What makes this project unlike anything that I've seen in my career is the ability to mine these high-grade, narrow veins from an open pit perspective. We have the ability to access these veins now. They are situated at surface, a couple of meters of overburden that needs to be removed, and that's it. And the reason is because things tilted. Now, it makes our mining a little bit unique, is that our ore body on average is probably only about 2.5 meters wide in terms of the overall mineralized structure, and we are mining this in 6-meter benches. So we do not have the capability of mining this in a conventional fashion, but we do have the ability to selectively, and dare I say artisanally mine this, such that our mining dilution can be controlled, provided that we have very good grade control. We have a geologist in the pit that's directing an excavator operator constantly to the tune that we can mine this with very limited dilution. And if we can prove that, and we will over the course of the next couple of months, once the data starts coming back from our mine, and we can demonstrate that we can mine this in a reasonably productive fashion, it opens up not just San Albino, it opens up everything on our property. All our 1-meter intercepts that are grading 13-ounce material instantaneously becomes potentially economic. It is a demonstration that these shallow-lying, high-grade veins have the ability to be extracted through cheap open-pit mining, which makes this unlike anything that I've seen globally. And then lastly, if there are any questions, I'd be glad to answer.